You might not think that you're a business owner, but you actually are. And today we're going to talk about how you can think and plan and be the most effective individual and business owner to achieve your financial freedom.
Welcome in. This is The Wealthy Life. I'm Ben George with Harrison Quinn of HDQ Wealth. And Harrison, I like this idea that, hey, I'm an individual, but maybe I should be thinking like a business owner. I mean, this is, I guess, kind of what you work with. I think the most highly successful people probably approach their finances this way, right?
Absolutely. And so, we're very lucky and fortunate to work with a lot of unique and cool business owners themselves. And the funny part is, though, is you can learn so much from a well-run and well-planned business and their actual financial plan and adopt that to your personal finances. And a lot of people like to think like, oh, that's not for me. Even financial planning in general is not, important. But what you can actually learn from successfully run businesses and the plans and goals and things they have set in place is one of the best ways to mirror and act and put that into your own financial plan.
Very good. So we're going to dive into that today. You'll learn some of these lessons and hopefully take something away to be able to apply to your own financial life moving forward. But again, if you have any questions, want to book a consultation with HDQ Wealth, you can do that. Find the link in the show description to do that. So let's jump in then. What are some of the things then, I guess, that you've seen, when you talk about this idea of, hey, I'm just an individual, but here are some things that you can be doing with that mindset of a business owner.
Yeah, I think the most simple way to jump into it is really understanding cash flow. So most businesses, small to big, really have to understand cash flow so that they can plan. They can make payroll. They have their fixed expenses like, mortgages or rent and insurances and things like that. So they really have to be dialed in and understand their actual cash flow. And I'd be willing to bet that a lot of people out there don't understand what their quote unquote burn is. And your burn is simply how much it costs to exist, how much it costs to live your life or run your business. And the benefit is most businesses do understand what they're spending per month and what it costs to keep them alive. Whereas individuals, we're not always the best at understanding how much we're spending from, the mortgages, the fixed expenses and things you have to pay for, insurance, all of that good stuff. And then on the variable expenses. So going out, travel, shopping, things that we probably indulge ourselves a little too much in, but understanding that the volatility there, but the benefit of analyzing your cash flow and then even looking back. So when you're looking year to year or month to month, it helps a ton to be able to understand how much are we spending? How can we continue to live a solid, wealthy life, but also making sure that we're saving enough for taxes, we're putting enough towards, the protection pieces like insurance, and we're also saving and planning for the future appropriately.
So understand that cash flow lets you kind of be able to do everything else within that plan effectively, right? And kind of build out your path forward. But without a grasp of that, you're kind of flying blind, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
What else? What else have you learned? What else do business owners get right that we could also apply to ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most boring but necessary pieces is insurance. Home insurance, car insurance, life insurance, things that are not sexy, things that you don't want to necessarily spend money on, but businesses spend thousands and millions of dollars on insurance. And actually, one of the largest pieces, in their line item per year is health insurance for their employees. And so we're spending a ton of insurance. So it's a really good idea to analyze the cost of insurance and what that actually looks like, but making sure you have the right insurance, the right coverage. Because if you don't have that piece in your life from a protection standpoint and a foundational standpoint, something bad can happen and it can blow up your entire financial plan.
Where do you see most individuals kind of exposed or maybe underinsured? What area do you see that most commonly?
Well, it's funny that one of the easiest ones to analyze is life insurance. And, I was speaking with another advisor the other day, and 90% of people are walking around underinsured when it comes to life insurance. And this is simply, you could be a young, single 22-year-old person, and it costs to put you in the ground if, God forbid, he calls you up today, right? Like it costs money to put you in the ground, casket, wake, funeral. It's not our favorite conversation to talk about, but it's incredibly imperative and important. So I tell individuals, and I think about, I go, we're just walking liabilities. You're walking around and you're underinsured, and something does happen to you, you become somebody else's liability, and nobody wants that. Something that is far less talked about or even known about is actually one of your most valuable assets that you walk around attaining, and it's your ability to earn an income. And that's, also known as disability insurance. And most people don't have the benefit to say, hey, if something happens to me or I no longer have to work, I can tap into my family, a trust fund, things like that. A lot of companies have sponsored, disability programs, but there's typically a gap. And so again, not only does it cost to put you in the ground and we're potentially leaving some people or debts behind, but the chances of young people passing away are a lot lower than maybe getting hurt and not being able to fully perform their job or not being able to perform their job at all. And so those are two, again, the not the most fun conversations to talk about, but a strong financial plan and your ability to live a wealthy life is having that foundational insurance and protection strategies in place.
Yeah, I would assume most people don't have that high on their list of priorities when it comes to kind of looking
No.
ahead and building out their finances, or because, like you said, it's not the most exciting topic to talk about. But again, protecting what you build is so important. So we got cash flow, we have insurance, the two lessons we've learned from business owners. What else do you have?
Yeah, I mean, most people who work at bigger companies, they have 401k plans. And the reason, and we've chatted about this before, but the reason why 401k plans produce some of the most millionaires in the country is not because the average rate of return is so amazing inside of a 401k. And transparently, most 401ks have high fees and low returns, much lower than individual accounts and individually managed accounts. But it's the forced savings and it's the consistent savings. So most of us, we're working for 40 years and we're putting 3%, 5%, 10% of our paycheck before we have the chance to spend it into that 401k. And it's a great exercise and it produces a lot of 401k millionaires. But some people think that that's it. That's after I put my money into the 401k. For most, I think it's something like 68% of people only have their investments into the public stock market inside their 401k. So the majority of people are not investing on their own. So act like a business, think like a business, and start investing on your own and taking that money away from you to pay your future self.
Yeah, I like that. Investing strategically is super important, and I know that's one of the things that you help your clients with at HDQ Wealth. If you have questions, want to set up a time to meet with Harrison and the team there, you can always get the link in the description and go ahead and start that process. But these are all important things, and really just shifting that mindset. I mean, I think oftentimes we look at ourselves. Hey, I just got a W-2, Harrison. I'm not a business owner. I'm an individual. I go about my life, my career, on my own terms. But this mindset is so important. So anything else that you found to be super pivotal and crucial for people that are looking to be successful?
Yeah, I mean, the overall thought of investing in your business, and again, it could be, Fortune 100 company or the mom and pop down the street, where leveraging professionals, investing in your business, and investing in things that aren't immediate gratification, but the goal is to set up a better business or a better life, and in our case, a wealthy life. And so putting things together and mapping out an actual plan and a financial plan. And most solid businesses have not only forecasted financial plans, but then also succession plans so that when you get older and you're starting to transition away from full-time working and you're maybe going to sell your company or you're going to maybe prepare to transition it within the family, or again, God forbid something happens to you, is there a plan for that company to transition hands? Or maybe you have partners. Do you have a buy sell agreement in place? All these types of things that a lot of business owners are more forced to think about because they have business owners, maybe they have investors, or a lot of banks require proper life insurance for business owners in order to get loans so that they know they can get paid back in the event of the death of a business owner. But all of those types of pieces, it's a lot more forced, or at least brought to the top of mind as a business owner, whereas a W-2 person who thinks that they're not a business owner really should be acting in that wavelength to properly form and plan for their wealthy life, to where you start to age up. Who's taking control of my assets? What happens if I become incapacitated? all those estate planning conversations and succession planning, depending on the size of your estate. And, obviously nobody wants to pay Uncle Sam. And if your estate gets to a certain point, and I think after, this year we've upped it to 15 million per person, so 30 million for a married couple. If your estate is over that, you're paying a large portion of estate tax to the government. So these become real conversations and costly conversations if you don't have them before those things start to happen. And I don't know if you know this or not, but we all are going to die. And so if you're having, the two truths, right? Taxes and death.
Yep.
And so it's, if you can plan for those and not mitigate, but optimize, that's a pretty good place to sit. And that's where a lot of big successful businesses and families continue to have that generational wealth and let the next and next generation continue and enjoy that wealthy life.
And this is kind of what your process is all about, right? At HDQ Wealth is kind of helping kind of map this out with people you're working with. I'm sure there are some people that come in that are already kind of on top of it, and then others that maybe aren't paying attention to all these different areas. But this is what you help to serve when you're working with someone, right?
Yeah, and it's often conflated that success or people who have a lot of money have their financial plan completely locked in. And I wouldn't say that it's inversely true, but there are plenty of people who do very well, successful families, successful businesses, and business owners who have completely let go of their personal financial plan or never had one to start. And if you do think about it, if you are very busy, a large family, multi corporations to manage, the last thing that you're thinking about is, did I max out my IRA? Are we properly insured, on my life? Like, when was the last time we had our trust or our will, amended or updated? These are things that just don't come directly to mind. And that's like when we sit down with people, I tell people, I go, start, just tell me, like, how does this process begin? I'm like, just tell me about yourself, and then from qualitative to quantitative, we begin to assess and, implement and understand all the information that they're sharing with us. And then we start to build out their financial plan. And not to give away the secret sauce, but I tell people often, we understand where you are, you tell us where you want to go, and we create the most efficient path there. That's financial planning. And it's simple, it's just not always easy. And it's an incredible, powerful tool if you get on it in the right time. And it can be a place of big loss if you do not have it ironed out when things start to fall.
Well, 4 great takeaways from business owners, what successful businesses do financially to make sure they're buttoned up. And again, if you have questions for Harrison, get in touch, hdqwealth.com. As always, begin that process. And if you're a business owner, maybe that hadn't thought about your personal finances as well and how to manage that and how to think ahead long-term beyond the business itself, now's a great time to have those conversations as well. But overall, some great takeaways, Harrison. Appreciate the insight.
All right. Thank you, sir.